Guess who's back? J-Rez is back. Yo, you got to follow me on my new instructor page, MFWRIC on IG. Let me know when you figure out what that means, right? All right, so look, in this video right here, we're going to jump over to page 405, right? We talked about the CFO. We talked about the Financial Services Commission. We identified the two offices underneath the Financial Services Commission, and we identified the Department of Financial Services. With that being said, I just want you guys to glance back to page 402 and just remember how they broke up that discussion, right? Remember in that very first line, the CFO directly oversees 15 divisions and offices. 13 divisions and 2 offices, right? Divisions are for us, the consumer, the agent, the agency. Why is the agency involved in there? Because the agency is nothing more than a bunch of agents, right? Still stays with the Department of Financial Services. Only the banks and insurers go over to the Financial Services Commission and then broken down to either the Office of Insurance Regulation or the Office of Financial Regulation, okay? So now we are talking about the divisions. These are those 13 departments, divisions of the department that the CFO directly controls. Now on the page prior, that bullet point, remember the Division of Consumer Services? There it is, there it is. So I don't mind if on page 405 you draw an arrow that goes to like, you see this, Steph? Why don't you draw an arrow from here pointing to that bullet point right there, right? Because here they did a good job identifying that, hey, the department responds to complaints. How? Boom, Division of Consumer Services. I don't care if that's a double-sided arrow. It goes both ways, right? Now, in here, if we look at this, we're not going to take anything from the top of that first paragraph there. Let's look at this. The division offers a variety of information. You do realize that whenever they give a variety of information, can you be tested? Can they write a question that says, they give you a variety of information? It's garbage. We don't need it. You think they're going to ask you if they have a toll-free helpline? I don't think so. Because if it was consumer services, how else did they think we were going to do it? Like, you do realize boomers aren't jumping on Google to go ahead and get on a website, right? They call everything. They take that rotary and but you ain't hear that from me, all right? But here, so that's how they got to do it. So you know that they got a helpline. And look at this next paragraph. The Division of Consumer Services performs the following functions, blah, 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 right? So look at that first bullet point. Receive inquiries and complaints from consumers. You can, yeah, duh. I didn't know if you heard the cheap seats over here. Stephanie was just like, it's customer service. Exactly. They receive complaints. That's what customer service does. I do want, look at that second bullet point because we're right back to what we were on the page prior. Highlight any person licensed. Right under license, must respond in writing to the division within 20 days. Okay? And we're going to talk about this a little more, but that is the only thing that I need you to take from that section. You already know that they take complaints. What you need to know is that you have 20 days to respond to complaints. Now, this is also interesting. The Department of Financial Services, you don't comply with them, they can take your license because they are a regulatory entity. This division, imagine if you walked into Target and you had a problem and they were able to issue a penalty to you. Would you ever go to customer service? Oh no, I don't want to get in trouble by customer service. I want to be served by customer service, right? I call it customer service, but you get it. It's consumer services. Because if I don't edit it right there, my millennial on the other side is going to be like, so they're different than customer service and consumer services? Yeah, you think I'm laughing? You know how many times I had to threaten him? We've done this class a few times, right? I had to threaten and be like, man, you correct me on this one more time, boy. Don't play with me, son. Don't play with me, son. But anyway, they are not they're not one of the regulatory entities of the department. They're just consumer services, okay? That's why when they use that wording, may, on the page prior, may impose penalties. If you don't comply within 20 days, that's where the fine comes in. You don't comply again, the fine goes up, and then we have a problem, right? Because obviously you don't want to answer consumer services. So let's move down to 26.2.4. Division of Investigative and Forensic Services. Highlight that headline. You don't respond to the Division of Consumer Services, it's probably because you're guilty, right? They're going to move that right down to the Division of Investigative and Forensic Services. So on the end of that first line right there, law enforcement and forensic components. Highlight that. Within the department. If I say law enforcement, what do you think? Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. Right? That's what you think. Don't think any differently. These are law enforcement officers. Why? We tried to be nice. We sent customer service at you. What? You want me to send you want me to send their manager after you? No. Whoop, whoop. We are sending the police. So right here, right under that, within the department, right under that where you highlighted, the division investigates fraudulent and criminal acts. First bullet point, highlight insurance fraud investigations. I want you to pause. What did I tell you? Insurance fraud? You're going to send an unarmed person. You do not send the mall cop after an insurance fraud, suspect, okay? These are sworn law enforcement officers. They are packing heat. They usually will not do an arrest unless they witness you in the act, but they could. They could. You can't resist at that point. Now, just because they can arrest you, where do they take you? To the circuit court, right? They take you to the prison there. It's not like the CFO in the Department of Financial Services has an insurance jail, okay? Usually, if somebody needs to be picked up, the the DFS investigators are going to refer it to local law enforcement. I just want to make sure you know that they are state law enforcement officers, okay? Forget about the workers' compensation and fraud investigations, because why would we need to highlight if I just said it covers fraud, right? But I do want, on that third bullet point, I want you to highlight fire, arson investigations. Okay? That, remember on the page, 2 pages prior, I had you write by the CFO. CFO is the fire marshal. There you go. His Division of Investigative and Forensic Services investigates fire and arson. Why? Because if you burnt it down, you want the insurance money. He's in charge of the business of insurance. Okay? Look at that. Look at that. They already got me coughing over here. Right? Next bullet point down, I want you to highlight misuse of state funds. He is the chief financial officer. Please think of the state of Florida as a business that needs to be run profitable, right? We can't have people running around throwing money at things that don't benefit the state. So, now you got the division. This next one, we have to dive into this much deeper at another time, but right now I just want you to highlight 26.25, Division of Rehabilitation and Liquidation. She's over here laughing because I had to go get some water, right? Because they went ahead and threw their coughs all over me. So, on this rehabilitation and liquidation, let me ask you a question, guys. Do you think that the state of Florida is going to rehabilitate an individual? Do you think they're going to liquidate the assets of an individual? So, what do you think the Division of Rehabilitation and Liquidation has to do with? Yes, business, insurers, right? The reason that this division is under the chief financial officer is because the OIR does the investigation, right, into the insurers and businesses, because they don't need somebody packing a gun. They've got little their guys aren't packing heat, they're packing a Mac, right? They're sitting there like, yeah, okay, they're going to sit there and pop open their MacBook and do a little forensics on here. But what they do is when they identify an insurer that has financial trouble, doesn't it make sense to refer that to the chief financial officer? His office, the Department of Financial Services, is equipped to handle the problem from the marketplace that comes when an insurer is going out of business. I want you to think about the word rehabilitation like pre-bankruptcy, meaning that they can still be saved. Liquidation, insurer's dead. So the reason that this division is with the CFO in the Department of Financial Services and not the Office of Insurance Regulation is because if the insurer goes under, it's the state that's going to take the call. The state is now identifying and communicating with the policy owners. And we're going to dive into that, but not here. Here, all I want you to highlight is on that first line, department, because we're not going to take the whole Department of Financial Services. We're going to use their nickname, department, and then at the end of that line, receiver of any insurer placed into receivership. I laugh because doesn't that definition suck? There's nothing worse than that. Like, don't you know that when you go to school, you're not supposed to use the answer to the question and use the same word in the answer? So receivership is bankruptcy. That's why I tell you guys pre-bankruptcy, bankruptcy. So if they're liquidating, that means the state of Florida is liquidating them to help pay for the claims. We're going to get into that. So all I need you to do is just highlight that one little section right there, because we're going to dive into it a little bit differently a little bit later into the class. And so that's going to finish you guys off for today. You guys can keep on going in the video. You don't know that there's a today, tomorrow, but sometimes we do live segments here, and I got the peanut gallery right behind me. So luckily, they keep me from talking real fast. When I talk real fast, you guys are like, what did you say? And I'm like, yo, man, just take your YouTube and slow it down. Press pause. Hit 10 seconds back. Stop asking me to slow down. But anyway, in the next section, we're going to talk about the OIR, the Office of Insurance Regulation, the OFR, the Office of Financial Regulations, and we're just going to drive in some of the things that we already discussed. And then we're going to jump into a few definitions and all about your licensing process, okay? So if you did just start and you are taking this on the replay, I'd prefer you to stop here, and that way we can keep the next kind of concepts nice and compartmentalized, all right? So, success. We're here. We're at the end. Get out.